The golden chandelier shimmered across Lateau, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants. The air carried the soft hum of quiet conversations, the delicate clink of crystal, and the faint melody of a live pianist near the bar. Every table was occupied by well-dressed patrons, their laughter blending with the scent of truffle and fine wine. At table 12, Daniel Crawford checked his watch for the third time. 37 years old, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, he looked like a man accustomed to control. Except tonight, control had clearly abandoned him. His sister, Laura, had begged him to go on this blind date. "It's been 2 years since the divorce, Dan," she'd said. "You need to move on." Against his better judgment, he'd agreed. But now, 20 minutes past 8, his date hadn't shown. He began to wonder if this was a sign. He should just give up trying. Meanwhile, at the entrance, Emma Walsh hesitated under the soft light of the grand chandelier. 28, kind-eyed, and dressed simply in a white blouse and navy skirt. She felt painfully out of place. The restaurant oozed luxury. Designer dresses, diamond jewelry, waiters who moved like choreography. Emma's entire outfit cost less than most patrons' appetizers. She scanned the room, clutching her purse nervously. Her friend Rachel Morrison had insisted on taking her out to celebrate Emma's first real job, a position as a social worker after years of graduate school and unpaid internships. Emma didn't want to come here. It was too fancy, too much. But Rachel had been insistent. "Good evening, miss," said the host, approaching with a practiced smile. "May I help you find your table?" "Yes," Emma replied, glancing around. "I'm meeting my friend Rachel Morrison. I don't see her yet." The host nodded, checking his list. "Ah, yes. Table 12. Right this way." Neither of them realized there were 2 reservations for table 12 that evening. One under Rachel Morrison at 8:30, and another for Daniel Crawford's blind date at 8 o'clock. In the bustle of the busy night, the host accidentally guided Emma to Daniel's table. Daniel looked up as Emma approached. She smiled nervously. "Hi, I'm Emma. I'm so sorry I'm late. The bus took forever." Daniel blinked. She looked nothing like the woman his sister had described, a high-powered corporate attorney named Allison. But she seemed genuine, a little flustered, and something in her warm expression stopped him from correcting the obvious mix-up. "No problem at all," he said, standing politely. "Please have a seat." Emma sat down, glancing around in awe. "Wow," she whispered. Rachel really went all out. "This place is incredible. I've never been anywhere this fancy." Daniel frowned slightly, confused. Rachel? Maybe his sister had told the woman the reservation was under a friend's name. He decided to go along with it. "So, Emma," he said, smiling, "tell me about yourself." She brightened instantly. "Well, I just finished my master's in social work, and I got my first job at a community center on the South Side. It's not glamorous, but I finally get to do what I love, help families, connect kids to programs, that kind of thing." Her sincerity surprised him. This definitely wasn't the ambitious lawyer he'd been expecting, but something about her energy disarmed him. "That sounds meaningful," he said honestly. "What made you want to go into that?" Emma's voice softened. "I grew up seeing what happens when people don't have access to help. Families struggling, kids falling through the cracks. I just want to make things better, even if it's one person at a time." Daniel found himself smiling for real. It had been so long since he'd met someone who spoke from the heart instead of a resume. Across the restaurant, the real blind date arrived, a polished brunette in a designer dress. She was seated at table 9, waiting impatiently for the man who never came. A few minutes later, Rachel Morrison arrived and told the host she was meeting her friend Emma Walsh. "Ah, yes," said the host confidently. "Your friend is already seated at table 12. When Rachel reached table 12, she froze. Emma sat there, chatting with a stranger. "Emma," she said, puzzled, "what are you doing here?" Emma looked up, startled. "Rachel, you're early. I thought you'd be. Wait, who's this?" "I don't know," Rachel said slowly, eyeing Daniel. "Who are you?" Daniel's phone buzzed at that exact moment. A text from Laura. "Are you still at the restaurant? Your date says she's been waiting at table 9 for half an hour." The realization hit all 3 simultaneously. "Oh my God, Emma, gasped, mortified. I sat at the wrong table. The host must have mixed up the names. I'm so sorry. Daniel laughed. An unguarded, genuine laugh that startled even himself. That explains a lot. I thought you were my blind date. Rachel covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. So, let me get this straight. You two have been having dinner together, each thinking you were meeting someone else? Pretty much, Daniel admitted, still chuckling. Though, to be fair, it's been a pretty great mix-up. Emma stood, embarrassed. I should go. Your actual date's waiting, and Rachel and I need to move to our real table. But Daniel stopped her. Actually, would you both like to join me? My blind date, and I can reschedule. Honestly, this has been the most interesting conversation I've had in a long time. Emma hesitated. That's really kind, but this place is ridiculously expensive. I can't. Please, Daniel interrupted gently, as an apology for confusion. It's my treat. He paused and smiled. And maybe, when you're not sitting at the wrong table, we could continue this conversation sometime. Rachel, who had always been the matchmaker in Emma's life, grinned. You know what? That's a great idea. I'll text my boyfriend and tell him to join Daniel's actual date at table 9. Let's not waste this happy accident. Emma looked mortified. Rachel, but her friend was already walking away with a wink. When she was gone, Emma sighed and looked back at Daniel. I guess I should at least know your name before accepting a dinner invitation from a stranger. He smiled. Daniel Crawford. And you're Emma Walsh, the social worker who just landed her dream job. She laughed softly. You remembered. I run a software company, Daniel said modestly. Not nearly as meaningful as what you do, but it pays the bills. Over the next hour, conversation flowed easily. They talked about their families, their ambitions, their fears. Daniel confessed that his divorce had left him wary of relationships. He'd buried himself in work, pretending he didn't care until his sister forced him into dating again. Emma admitted she'd been so focused on school and her career that she hadn't dated in years. Then she asked, When you realized I wasn't your actual date, why didn't you just tell me? He smiled. Because you seemed genuinely nice. I didn't want to embarrass you. And once you started talking about your work, I realized I didn't want a conversation to end. Emma blinked, surprised. Even though I showed up in a 5-year-old blouse and took the bus? Especially because of that, Daniel replied softly. You weren't trying to impress me. You were just you. She smiled, touched by his sincerity. Daniel, this has been really nice. But I should be honest. My life isn't glamorous. I'm going to be working long hours for little pay, dealing with families in crisis, living in a small apartment. That's just who I am. Daniel leaned back, thoughtful. What if I told you that sounds refreshing? My ex-wife was obsessed with status. It was exhausting. You're focused on meaning and purpose. That's what I've been missing. Emma looked down at her hands, trying to process what she'd just heard. In this grand restaurant, surrounded by people who live lives far removed from hers, Daniel's words felt oddly genuine, disarming even. Most people I meet, he continued quietly, care about what I can offer them, status, influence, connections. But you spent the last hour talking about helping others, not once trying to impress me. I can't remember the last time I had a conversation like that. Emma smiled shyly, still uncertain. Well, I guess that's because I don't really have anything impressive to offer. Just a lot of student debt and a strong opinion about the foster care system. Daniel laughed warmly. That's exactly what I mean. They ended up talking long after Rachel had gone. Their dinner plates cleared and replaced by coffee. By the time they finally stood to leave, the restaurant had begun to empty. Daniel insisted on walking Emma and Rachel outside, where the cool Chicago air carried the hum of late-night traffic. When a black luxury sedan pulled up, Emma hesitated. You really don't have to. I know, Daniel said gently, opening the door for her. But I want to. She climbed in, offering him a grateful smile. Thank you for not making tonight awkward. Most people would have laughed and sent me away. Most people, Daniel said, smiling back, aren't you? As the car drove away, Daniel stood for a moment, watching the taillights fade before glancing down at the napkin in his hand where Emma had written her number. For the first time in a long while, he felt something simple and unfamiliar: hope. Over the next several weeks, they met again, this time intentionally. Their conversations never revolved around status or success. Instead, they spoke about purpose. Emma told him stories from her job, about teenagers struggling to stay in school, families fighting to keep roofs over their heads, the exhaustion of bureaucracy, and the quiet victories that made it worth it. Daniel listened, fascinated. His world revolved around numbers, quarterly reports, and investor meetings. Hers revolved around people. And yet, in some strange way, they balanced each other. He began showing up at the community center with donations of laptops for after-school programs, pretending it was for tax reasons, though Emma saw right through it. She'd tease him about it, but her gratitude was real. "Do you always try to fix everything with money?" she'd asked one afternoon. Daniel had smiled. "It's what I know how to do." "Then maybe," Emma replied softly, "learn to fix things with time. Sometimes that's worth more." He took her words to heart. Instead of writing checks, he started spending weekends helping at the center, teaching coding classes to kids who'd never touched a computer before. Emma watched him from across the room, quietly amazed. Beneath his polished surface, Daniel Crawford was nothing like the shallow executive she'd expected. Their relationship grew slowly, organically. They didn't label it right away. There were no grand declarations or whirlwind gestures, just small, steady moments of connection. A shared coffee before work, long walks through the city, late-night talks about what truly mattered. 6 months later, they still laughed about the night of the wrong table. Emma had framed the napkin where she'd scribbled her number, calling it their accidental destiny. At the community center, Emma had become a trusted advocate, earning the respect of families and colleagues alike. Daniel often joined her for events, always quietly in the background, never seeking recognition. One afternoon, while waiting for her outside the center, Daniel found himself talking to a single mother who was struggling to find childcare while working 2 jobs. Her story stuck with him. That night, he sat in his office surrounded by financial reports, but couldn't shake her words. By morning, he'd made a decision. He called his board of directors and announced the creation of the Crawford Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to funding community support programs across Chicago. When he told Emma, she was speechless. "You started a foundation because of a conversation in a parking lot?" Daniel smiled. "Because of a conversation with you. You made me see what actually matters." Emma blinked back tears. "You don't have to do this for me." "I'm not," he said simply. "I'm doing it because it finally feels like something worth building." Their relationship wasn't perfect. They argued sometimes about her long hours, his unpredictable schedule, her insistence on splitting checks despite his protests. But beneath it all was something solid: respect. Daniel admired her courage to live authentically, while Emma admired his willingness to unlearn old habits of privilege and replace them with empathy. They hadn't moved in together or gotten engaged. They both wanted to take things slow, to build on truth rather than impulse. Emma often joked that their mistaken dinner had set the perfect pace. Everything that went wrong that night, she'd say, ended up being exactly right. One spring evening, they returned to Lateau, the same restaurant where it had all begun. The chandeliers still shimmered. The same pianist played softly near the bar. But this time there was no confusion, no nerves. Just 2 people who knew exactly who they were to each other. As they sat at table 12 again, Daniel raised his glass. "To the best mistake I've ever made." Emma laughed, clinking her glass against his. "To wrong tables and right people." They lingered for hours, not needing anything grand to make the evening meaningful. Just each other. That night, as they walked hand in hand to the quiet Chicago streets, Daniel turned to her and said, "You know what I realized?" "What's that?" she asked. "All my life, I thought success was about being in the right rooms with the right people. But the best thing that ever happened to me was sitting at the wrong table." Emma smiled, her eyes soft under the city lights. "Then maybe there's no such thing as a wrong table, just the one we're meant to find." He looked at her, really looked, and realized she was right. Months later, The Crawford Foundation became a cornerstone for social programs across the city, supporting shelters, mentorship programs, and community outreach, all inspired by a woman who once showed up at the wrong dinner. Emma continued her work, grounded and passionate as ever. Daniel supported her, but never overshadowed her. Together, they proved that love built on respect and shared purpose could bridge the widest gaps between wealth and modesty, luxury and simplicity, past wounds and new beginnings. They didn't need labels or public declarations. What they had was real. The poor girl who had once sat at the wrong table had unknowingly changed the life of a man who thought he'd seen everything. And the CEO who believed love had passed him by discovered that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when life goes completely off script. Narrator's close. Thank you for listening to this story. A reminder that sometimes the universe rearranges our plans just to place us exactly where we belong. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in chance encounters. And remember, the most meaningful connections often begin when everything seems to go wrong. Because sometimes the wrong table is exactly where love is waiting.